on the tram.
Yeah.
Like in that, what was that bridge that Jacoby was trying to make?
Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's a few minutes after 10, and so we want to make sure we have enough time to have all the information that you're gonna need moving forward. So good morning, everyone. And welcome to Prevention First. My name is Ann Cox. I'm the manager of Substance Abuse Prevention Training and Technical Assistance here at Prevention First. And I want to welcome you to the Chicago Substance Abuse Prevention Services meeting with DHS leadership, so with Kim Fernero. So a couple of quick housekeeping items before we go ahead and get started with Kim's presentation. For those of you who are not familiar with our Chicago office, haven't perhaps been here, haven't been here for a while, restrooms are right out through the main doors and right down to your right, both the men's and the women's restroom. If we would ask you to put your cell phone on mute so that it isn't disrupted during the meeting. If you have to take a call, if you would please step outside by the elevators, by the couches out by the elevators so it doesn't disrupt anyone working either. We would ask you to just do that. Our meeting is going to go until 11:30 this morning. Let's see, we are videotaping this meeting, so you might notice there's a videotape in the back. We're videotaping this. The videotape will actually be on our website. It'll take us a couple of weeks. Our IT guy is on vacation, so the person who does that for us. So we will have that up in probably about 2 weeks. You can look for it under the DHS section of our website. And I'll talk a little bit more about where you can locate that information when I do my presentation. With me here this morning and taking some notes, behind the scenes back here is Jody Havlin, who is a Training and Technical Assistance Specialist here at Prevention First. If you've gone to any of our trainings, you've seen Jody. If you haven't, you'll see her in the future at trainings. And then, of course, presenting and facilitating the meeting this morning is Kimberly Fernero, who's Deputy Director with the Department of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse at the Illinois Department of Human Services. So, we're going to start off with some really brief introductions. I've told you who we are. Now we want to hear from you. And so if you would just give us your name, your title, the organization or agency that you work for, as well as the service area that you covered here in the city of Chicago, and then how long have you worked in the area of substance abuse prevention? So I'm going to start with this gentleman right here.
Sure. Good morning, I'm Michael. I'm in Arts Leadership and Health Coordinator at Alternatives Inc., the Youth Services Agency, and we're based in the North Side, and I'm new at substance abuse prevention.
My name is Jared Kubelski. I'm the Contracts and Grants Manager at Alternatives Inc. Same service area, North Side, from uptown up to Norwood Park. I've been in substance abuse prevention for about a year.
Novella Bates, title, I guess they call us the Senior Prevention Specialist. I'm from Prevention Partnership. We're now in the new Area 7, which is Austin, East and West Garfield, and North Lawndale. And I've been in prevention for about 28 years.
I'm Emma Svensbog. I am a supervisor of Youth and Family Services with Refugee and Immigrant Community Services with Heartland Alliance. And we are in the service area of Edgewater, Rogers Park, and Westridge, which is also North Side. I've been with substance abuse prevention since about 2013.
I'm Leotina Gustafson. I'm also with Heartland Home Care Services, where I'm the director of the resettlement program. Same service area, and I've worked in prevention for about 10 years.
Hi, my name is Naomi Reamer, and I'm with Metropolitan Family Services. And the service area is Logan Square, Humboldt Park, Hermosa, and Vermont Cragen. And I've been in prevention for 4.5 years.
Hi, I'm Jessica Dubar, the Assistant Clinical Director at Haymarket Center. I've been with substance abuse prevention at Haymarket for about 2 years, overseeing, we had a mighty program of 1 in the Grand Boulevard area, and so we're excited to expand our service area to Grand Boulevard, Douglas, Bronzeville, Hyde Park, all those great locations.
I'm Al Orsello with the Prevention Partnership. We're Area 7. I'm with Novella Bates, and we're in Austin, North Lawndale, East and West Garfield, and I've been in prevention for a long time.
Terry Gandy, HRDI. Not sure what else we're supposed to be saying.
Right up there.
Terry Gandy, Director of Prevention and Community Health. Service area would be 15 and 16, so that's the Roseland, Allgill, Auburn, Gresham, Beverly, Pullman. We're all on the south end of the city. Forgive me, I just don't know right offhand. And how long have we been working in this area? Oh, 14 years.
Michael Dow, I'm the Finance Director of Pilsen Wellness Center. We're in area 8 and 10, and I've been in the substance abuse arena for a little over 2 years.
Darian Luchechko, Pilsen Wellness Center, area 8 and 10, and I've been the prevention for 7 years.
I'm Monica Basanan, Corporate Compliance Officer for Pilsen Wellness Center. We are at Pilsen, Little Village, Lawndale area, 8 and 10 that we're saying. And the organization has been in prevention and substance abuse for more than 40 years and corporate compliance, so not really servicing.
My name is Vanessa Sanchez. I'm the Program Manager for Prevention at Youth Outreach Services, and our service area is North Lawndale.
Jamie Noto, I'm the Director of Program Operations for Youth Outreach Services, and we're Area 2. And we've been servicing that area for as long as I can remember. I've been involved in our prevention department on and off for the last 25 years.
My name is Zoe Baca. I'm the Prevention Services Manager at Rincon Family Services. We service Albany Park, Irving Park, and Avondale. And I've been doing prevention work for about 3 years now.
We have one lady in the back.
Teresa Wilson, HRDI, same areas. How long have I, about 13 years, prevention? Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Kim now. She can take it away.
Well, it's nice to see all of you here. Appreciate you being available on kind of short notice. And let me offer my congratulations. It was a competition, so maybe some of you are expanding, some of you are contracting, some of you are in different areas. It's great to see all of you and really look forward to working with you. This is really exciting. We're doing some new things we haven't done in the past. We're continuing some of the services we've done, I should say, doing new things that we haven't done in the past and things some of them are carrying forward from the previous fiscal years in terms of the delivery type or the strategies. I want to clarify, just because there's a little confusion, there are I'm not referring to them as sub-grants, but there are 3 distinct programs. Some of you are going to administer multiple grants. So some of you are only working in the city of Chicago, and you guys are referred to, or the agencies are referred to as CSAPS, Chicago Substance Abuse Prevention Services. That's the acronym. Then there's SAPS, Substance Abuse Prevention Services. They're outside of the city of Chicago. They have a different focus, and they're going to have their own meetings. So some of you might be participating today, and some of you will be expected to participate in a webinar either tomorrow or the next day to get that information. And then we also have something called SRSAPS, which is State and Regional Substance Abuse Prevention Services. And those are typically serving a large region like the entire city, or Cook plus, Kane, Will, DuPage, Lake, or the entire state. So there's a distinction with each grant. They all have very different focus areas, and they have different expectations, and that's why I wanted to kind of break you out. Since I'm here in the city, just down the street kind of from here, just thought it'd be nice to bring all of you together and do this face-to-face. And share this important information to kind of kick off the grant. And hopefully, we've already been getting some questions. What should I be doing? What about this? And so I'm like, I know you guys are anxious, and I want to make sure that we can provide as much as possible right now. So the other thing I want to talk about, even though it's not in the grant name, is just as I'm talking about this, I'm trying to change the terminology a bit. So one thing I want to just bring to your attention is the term substance abuse prevention. You might hear us like moving in the direction of now saying substance use disorders, to acknowledge that it's a disease. When we use the word addiction, when we use the word user, abuser, those are all kind of stigmatizing, right? And that's part of the issue that we're confronting in our field, is that some people don't believe that it's a disease of the brain, how we treat people. If we don't call people who eat donuts and have a problem with diabetes, they're not, sugar users, right, abusers. We don't say that. We say that they're diabetic and they get the appropriate care. So we're trying to make sure that we're, as we work in this field and we're out there talking with people, that we want to start maybe using that term, substance use disorders. That's another, and that was rolled out by the Office of National Drug Control Policy, the last director, Michael Botticelli, which I think was really important work, because again, we want to make sure people are receiving appropriate levels of treatment, that they understand that this isn't just a moral failure, or all those things that we know that come with this particular issue. So I wanted to start off by making sure you're aware of all that. Okay, so what we're going to do here today is I am going to cover some fiscal payment information, and as for program people, you might not have direct communication, but I think it's important that you're aware of it. We expect that program staff are involved in the budget process, because you know how far you need to travel, maybe how much travel is involved, what kind of materials are needed to deliver the program. One of the things, if we don't see materials for curriculum, we're going to say, hey, how are you going to deliver this if you don't have workbooks, curricula purchased for the people who are going to facilitate? So we see that as a joint process, not something like, fiscal staff over here and program staff over there, and they never shall meet. Additionally, just some contract information. It's really important that you have an awareness about the information in your contract. And then getting into more of the program information. What are the deliverables? What are we're expecting you to, the kind of services you're expected to deliver, and a little bit about reporting. And then I'm going to ask Ann to come back up and share some information, what's ahead in terms of training, some things that we're going to be able to get up and going fairly to their credit, fairly soon, and trying to give you the information that you need to go out and start some of the services. Okay, so this is where, and I think the other thing is, you're here today, this will be online, and that's why we're recording it, so that folks at your agency, you can say, hey, look at this website, here's more information about it. And so some of this is fiscal, you might want to go back and communicate this, whoever's that person in your agency. So I wanted to actually talk about, because all of you are currently funded by the department, have administered a grant in the past. We don't have any new agencies. You've all done this. So I thought it would be helpful just to talk about this. So if you didn't expend, the end of the fiscal year was June 30th. If you do not expend all of your dollars, we actually have a process of de-obligation now. So if we find, even if it's 5 cents, we are program staff, we're required to de-obligate those funds. So that triggers, and it triggers something in the system, in the CSA, which is the online system that you use to get your contracts. So your executive director is going to get a notification saying, oh, there's been a reduction in our funds, an email notifying them of such. Anytime we touch your contract, even if we did something internally and changing codes, it triggers a notification. So I'm trying to be proactive. Your authorized representative, typically your executive director or your chief fiscal officer, or again, it's at the discretion of your agency to make that determination. We'll get this notification. You're not required to update your budget. That's the important thing. Do I have to do something? No, you don't. It's just to notify you that we've taken, and this is all based on your expenditure reports. So again, it's what you've reported, and if there's an issue, then you need to notify us. because we need, you know, your final EDF is due, let's see. So for June, it would be July 15th. So we're right there. If you have to revise, now's the time. And you only have a few more days to do this. If you find that, because this is what's going to happen if you feel like, oh, well, shoot, we forgot to report this. Well, you've got to do it right now. So this is something you want to relay back to the fiscal people because this creates a lot of confusion. And so I'm trying to get in front of it and make sure that we're not getting a ton of emails that we might not be able to respond to in a timely fashion. Okay, so we rolled out some new expenditure report last year. Now we're rolling out even a different one. So there's going to be a call held on July 31st to provide information about that new expenditure report. And this has to do with the GATA, the Grants Recovery and Transparency Act. So there's new reporting forms. We're actually going to tailor it, and we're going to send you one per agency so that we'll put some of the information in it. We're going to probably send out, we're in the process of pulling that together. So we might initially send you a generic one just so that you can follow along during the presentation on a week from today, just so that you know what Rick Nance is in DASA. He's going to be helping me with that. We're going to walk through, but after that, we're going to send your agency a specific expenditure report to use. And then you'll just be updating that on a monthly basis. So it's still going to be monthly reporting. It's still the 15th of the month. So for July, it would be due August 15th. It's always really 15 days after the preceding month. And I specifically say you don't want to go out and look on our website because it doesn't have the new tool, because the tool was still all being finalized. So don't go back and look for something online. If you can't find it or somewhere down the line, then notify staff, but you don't want to use what's on the website. Okay, just make sure I covered everything. Make sure that we, when this notification comes out, is we want one representative per agency. We think it's really important, if possible, for the fiscal staff to be the representative, but if they're not available, then please make sure that someone's on, and we would encourage, we're never going to discourage anyone participating. A call-in number will be provided, so be on the lookout for that information. All right, so just some basics. So we base the funding, or base our checks or the payments issued is based on what you report. We're not allowed to proactively, we just don't take a 12 to 12 to 12, and here's the amount of your contract. So if you report this month for July, I've expended $1,000, that's what is going to be issued. That's the payment that will be issued. Now, sometimes, because the payment isn't immediate, you might get two payments together. So you need to go back and look at your records to make sure, like, well, okay, we reported $1,000 in July, $1,000 in August. The check should probably be $2,000, not if it's $50,000, then you might want to ask a question. Or if it's $1,000, then you might want to ask a question. Oftentimes I'm going to come back, or my staff will come back and say, have you submitted all of your expenditure reports if you find it's not what you expected in terms of your payment. Again, we want you to use this new form that we're rolling out. All of this information is found in Exhibit C. So the one thing is the exhibits are a part of your uniform grant agreement, the contract. And that's where you're going to find this information. So again, you want to make sure you're looking at this information, because sometimes I think people download it and they file it and they don't share parts of it with various staff in the agency. So this is the most probably one of the most important things is that we have an internal deadline in getting the information to fiscal. And they process things really all at the same time. So if you kind of miss we get it by the 15th, we have a few days to turn it around. give it to our fiscal staff so that they can issue payments, so you're getting timely payments. So if you submit late, then you might miss the deadline for us to get it in, then you're gonna get paid, then your payment's gonna be pushed back to the following month. So just know that that's another thing that if you're like, well, why didn't I get my, $2,000? Well, if you submitted like by the 31st instead of the 15th, we may have already submitted our documentation to issue payments as, again, a grant program, and we can't go back and kind of like trickle, here's this one and here's this one. So I just want you to be aware that that could delay your payments, because oftentimes, you know that you're really needing, cash strapped, don't have a lot of revenue, especially now. So it's really important where possible, is to really meet those deadlines so that you're getting timely payments. I probably should have made this part of my opening remarks too. I keep saying DASA because that was another change. We are no longer part of Family and Community Services, and hopefully all of you have seen announcements, and we're making sure that you're going to start getting what's called DASA alerts, which is the Division of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse. So, so treatment provider, if you're delivering treatment services, you're already seeing those. But if you're a prevention-oriented only provider, then you're going to be added to the list, so you start getting those announcements. So that's why I'm referring to DASA and not Family and Community Services. Now, you might see, though, like FY17 stuff was at Family and Community, 18 is really going forward is DASA. So I'm kind of straddling right now both worlds, right? Trying to, finish things with one division. And things are a little bit different in DASA in terms of how things are done. So you're like, but you're all part of the same department. Every division acts a little bit differently, but like the new documentation form, that's something that my understanding is really something that is going to be cross-cutting across the department. It's not limited to this division. And just make sure that everybody knows, you can always check on the status of your payments by going to the comptroller's website. And this is the website you would look to. And then if you go to the next slide. And this is just the basics about the type of information. You want to click on vendor payments, you're considered in their system, they call you a vendor. The TIN is another way of saying FEIN, your federal entity identifying number. You click payments, you can select the fiscal year, and then it should, the other thing you would need to know is your grant number, your contract number for this program. So if you get, treatment and mental health, and each grant has its own unique number. So it's going to be important to be able to know, oh, well, for the substance abuse prevention, it's contract number X, because they're all going to come into the system for you to check on the status. So as I referenced, I like to just talk about this because we use terms interchangeably. It's not meant to confuse you. They're just synonyms, really. So when I say contract, I also mean grant. A couple years ago, it was called the Community Service Agreement. Now we call it a Uniform Grant Agreement. I can't tell you why exactly we're making these changes, but this is what it's being called now, and it's important that if you hear Uniform Grant Agreement, they're talking about your grant, they're talking about your contract. Every contract comes with a uniform, what's called a boilerplate. So the first 43 or 46 pages, you pretty much all are seeing the same articles. It will be specific to your agency, like the identifying, the amount, but the start and end dates will be the same, and then all the other information will be, generally the same, as well as the exhibits. We haven't done, and I'm going to get into that in a second, they're not customizable. We've done generic exhibits for all the programs, and I think that's creating a little confusion, so I want to clarify that. This is the website, so if you go to the DHS website, you will find a sample one, because again, agencies are kind of like finicky about sharing this information of their own. But if you want to look at it, and I encourage you to look at it, because there's really important program information in it, as well as other things that might make you like sleep, you know, like I don't really need to know about our auditing or some other parts, but so this is where you would find it if you want to see the generic boilerplate that, again, the first 43, 46 pages that everyone sees in the contract and issue. All right, so these are, first I would recommend, it's always important to read the entire thing, but like I said, I kind of know the reality of this, so I'm going to point you in the direction of some important ones to reference that are really program specific. So again, it just talks about, like in general, you're going to find more in the exhibits, but it talks about the scope. It gives you information about the budget, because I get a lot of questions. Do I have to, you know, what do I need to do in terms of budgets? You have some flexibility. There's a certain amount that you don't have to come back to the department with under 10% in a particular budget category. You can amend, and you don't need to come to us. But there are other, when it exceeds that, you do need to make a formal request. Allowable costs, which is really important. Maintenance of records and availability of records. So that really, oftentimes you're sending us an expenditure report with numbers reported, or your information in the hub, you're just reporting number served and number of hours. But we always have the right to come on site and look at your backup documentation to see, oh, we want to see these meeting minutes, we want to see your rosters, we want to see documentation of your resource guide. We might begin to upload some of that, and we might, at the end of the year start to gather some of that, but you need to maintain these records, and you maintain them for a number of years. It's not just, oh, I'm going to throw away all my FY17, I'm good, I'm going to clean out my file. No, you have you're required to maintain documentation for a number of years, and that's changed too. It used to be 7, I think it's 5, so again, it's something that you need to look to. The one thing I would say is that people ask, do I have to have a hard copy? You don't, but you have to have electronic. You have to have somewhere where we can come and find that. If we said, okay, we want to see your services for the month of, you reported this, and we want to see for the month of December, you're going to need to be able to produce that information. All right. So performance reporting. That's going to be more tailored, but it's kind of saying these are things that we expect of all providers. We want to know not only, what you projected, then how you spent your money, was it allowable, subcontracts and subgrants. I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. Notice of change is really about folks at your agency. I can't tell you, and I'm going to really stress this in a couple different places, how important it is that we know who your key contacts are. Your executive director at the fiscal level and at the program level, because even in getting ready for this meeting, emails are bouncing back, wrong email address. When there's important information, and it takes us time to and then we're looking for phone numbers, or, oh, they didn't give us this contact for this particular, or they have all 3 of the same names, and now we have the wrong email address. So it's really critical that we have good records so that we know how to notify you about important things about the contract or your budget or about payments or whatever. And so you have a responsibility to proactively notify us, but I'm also going to do things to kind of push you to do that and hopefully activate you to remember this stuff. So equipment and property. This is something in terms of definition that's changing a little bit. We used to ask for a lot of documentation. The threshold for equipment technically is now $5,000. So a laptop that we used to call equipment, we are recategorizing in some ways to say a supply, unless your agency has different policies and procedures, and then they would dictate how you're characterizing them. So there are nuances here to all this too. We might call it something, but your agency policy might override that, because if you categorize that in your standard operating procedures as a piece of equipment, then you need to treat it as such. And then that has other implications. And now you're like, wow, this is like not my thing, but this is important to know. And this, again, this will become more important when I get into some other future slides. And then promotional materials and prior notification. We are asking that on your documents that you create, whether it be a flyer, a PowerPoint, your agendas at the bottom would say funded in whole and by part by the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services and the Illinois Department of Human Services. They can be in very small font, but we are looking for that acknowledgement in the materials that you produce. I didn't say this earlier, but if you have questions, just stop me and we'll, I'll take them as we go. So for program folks, this is really important. And so exhibit A, B, E, and F. So you're gonna say, well, what happened to C and D? C I already told you was payments. D, I can't remember what D is at this second, but these are the ones you need to see. So you need to go back and say, I really need to see these. I need to know what is in this information. What's important to recognize about the deliverables is, like I said, they're generic deliverables, or generic exhibits, I should say. So what we put in is not only Chicago Substance Abuse Prevention Services, but substance abuse prevention for both types of grants. So people are like, well, what am I accountable to? You are only accountable to the one you were funded for. So even though it's in there, some of you, again, have multiple types of grants, then you're accountable to both. But if you're only a CSAPS, those are the only ones you need to pay attention to, okay? And if for some reason you can't get your hands on them, then let us know, and we might just go ahead and email them. But we want you to establish, again, that internal communication to have this important information. You should be able to get it within your agency. Okay. All right, so budgets. So some of you were involved in our very new way of budgeting. It was new for me, it was new for you, so we're all learning together. I can't promise it will be exactly the same next fiscal year, but so we have a new budget template. It is, again, used across the department. What we've learned through this process is that even though you may have received an approval or a conditional approval, we might still be coming back to you and asking you to update some parts. So one part was like those questions on one of the earlier pages about, it's under what was called the provider tab, and there was a request to answer 2 questions about if you had a certain level of funding, you had to answer it, and then that triggered a response to the next one. Well, if that's missing, they're really looking for us to be complete. We have auditors that we need to satisfy, so we may have approved it and didn't recognize like that was a really critical part of the process, so we still might need to come back to you and say, this needs to be updated. And that guidance is going to be forthcoming, because if you had a chance to look at the contract, you will see that it was attached when we emailed it. So when you downloaded it, the last 20 to 27, depending on how long your budget was, is attached as a formal part of your contract now. And we're finding in order to amend it, it triggers, again, a formal amendment, and so we're like, does it have to? So we're working out some of the details. So it's the guidance I was hoping we were gonna send that out now, but we need to wait a little bit until we get some additional guidance about what it's gonna do in the system and the CSA, because that's where you would need to go in and enter and update it. So be on the lookout. That information is still gonna be coming out. I also wanted to use this opportunity to talk about subcontracts. They do require prior approval. And so what that means is that they need to be sent to us before they're signed by either party. So by the agency executive director and the person that you're entering into a subcontract with. We only want to see program staff, and Chantal High, myself, we only want to see a program-oriented subcontract. So we don't want to see your subcontract for cleaning services and auditing and your legal. We want to see, we're going to subcontract to create our resource directory. We're going to have someone work on that. then we want to see that subcontract. So if it's supporting the program services, that's when we need to look at it. It's really important, like I said, it's unexecuted. Send it well in advance. Don't give us 2 days to look at a subcontract. That's gonna create really problems for you because that's difficult turnaround. So give us, at least a couple weeks. More time would be ideal. I just want to talk about, and I'll put this is going to be part of the guidance that comes out in terms of the budget. We want to know the name of the subcontractor, and again, the deliverables or the work product. We want to know the rate or the amount of the subcontract. It's important to note that the subcontractor is held to the same requirements as you are. So I'm just going to use this as a simple example, but let's say you were going to reimburse them for mileage. Well, they couldn't charge, $1 per mile if you're being held accountable to 53.5 cents. So they're held to the same DHS requirements in terms of allowable costs and things of that nature that you are. We want to know the start and end date. And then, like I said, we want to see lines that both parties will sign it. Your agencies often have a standard boilerplate they use. That's okay, but that's the kind of information we would expect to also see. If that's not currently a part of it, you might need to add like an addendum so we see some of that specificity for prevention. Okay, I think that's all I need to say about subcontracts. All right, so budget narrative, I kind of touched on this already. So it's budget category, detailed line items, 10%. So if you're just moving it, we're taking $50 from here, we're gonna put it into travel and it was in supplies. Most likely you can do that without, coming to us. But we're gonna take, $30,000 and move that from personnel to supplies. It probably would exceed, and then you would need to tell us. And this is the kind of information we're interested in knowing. Is the rationale for the change, the budget category, and the line item. So if it was from personnel, why is that? Was it because you didn't have a prevention staff hired? Was it because there's a vacancy at someone who is supervising the prevention staff? So we also want to know, so we're reducing personnel by 30,000. We're going to increase a new budget category, supplies by that amount, and then any other important information related to it. I can't stress enough how specificity is better than a lack of detail, because really we just come back. If we see something like that, $30,000, we want to understand what did that support? What do we? How could that impact services? So we need to understand, and we also can't say, oh, we're going to move that to contractual. Now we're buying a car. We need to understand what are we going to do with those funds, and so understanding how much it costs per widget, or understanding general costs with we're going to now move this to send staff to this conference. So there's mileage, lodging. We want to understand that. So don't err on the side of lack of detail. We probably always need more detail. As long as that will help us process it in a timely fashion. And again, it should be submitted to the program administrator, and that's Chantal High. So hopefully most people know her name. It's Chantal High, chantal.high@illinois.gov. And Illinois is always spelled out. So you want to put that in writing and seek out that information. All right, so changes again in key personnel. I kind of mentioned this. It's so important that you keep us apprised of who's in place. We also ask that you copy CPRD because you need to have access, especially if it was someone who had access to the reporting system. That might need to be updated. They're no longer going to be there. It also triggers them to say, hey, we might need to direct them, or make sure they know where to find that information about how to use the systems. And then the other is the Prevention First. We have something called a shared website, and I use that vehicle for communicating with you. could be saying, hey, there's this new funding opportunity at the national level, or hey, here's a nice resource that might help you in your work. As addition, or here's important upcoming required meetings that we want you to be a part of. So it's good to register for that as well. We are going to send out the form again when we send out some information about the budgets or the program plan information. We're also going to post it on the Prevention First website. So, it's not applicable now, but maybe in, February we have a change in the administrator, you know where to find that form. All right, let's move on. You guys doing okay? All right, so getting into more of the program-specific information. So these are the 3 new goals for the project. So one of the things that we asked you always, what does the data say? We want you to be data-driven. Well, we were data-driven. We looked at what does Chicago look like compared to the rest of the state? And what we identified was the marijuana issue in Chicago is pretty significant. And just to keep focusing on alcohol in the city, we have actually another discretionary grant. This really makes sense for the city of Chicago based on the data, the Illinois Youth Survey data that was reviewed. So that is one of the major focus areas that we want to see. We want to bring down those rates. We need to get the word out. The other, and this is really a statewide goal for the, so again, across CSAPS and SAPS, is to really begin to look at the non-medical use of prescription drugs. And it's really not just prescription, it's really the opioid, right? The opioids. Hopefully I'm not, I don't want to belabor this, but we really have a crisis in the state of Illinois, crisis nationally. And we haven't really, as substance abuse prevention providers, been really pushing that information out. And so this was a good opportunity to direct some of our time and attention to make sure that people really understand the very dangerous consequences associated with using, and again, prescriptions can be, they have a very valid reason to be prescribed. So we're not saying, opioids are all bad. Some people really need pain medication. It's just there's a risk involved in using pain medication. And so making sure that people understand, or that once they're done with it, what do I do with it? And so that we're gonna, that's where we're gonna direct some of our time and attention. And then the third, and this is another statewide, is we want to increase or maintain participation of public schools in the Illinois Youth Survey. And so I'm going to and get into that, but we are going to really begin to focus our efforts. That was kind of a voluntary activity in the last grant. Now this is a required activity. We really need all of you to act as ambassadors for the youth survey. I can't stress enough that we are not, we don't have the luxury of just saying substance use. We've got to be able to talk about what specifically, what do we know about our neighborhood, our neighborhoods in the city. And right now we can't say a lot. We can say a lot about the city of Chicago, but we can't say by the 77 neighborhoods, and that's not okay. We really need to be moving towards being able to say more. Well, how does Edgewater, how does Auburn Gresham compare to the Chicago rate? How does the Chicago rate compare to this state rate? So that we know, wow, this is really bad. Because looking at a number independently, is that good or bad? That might be great, but if we don't have something to use as a benchmark, as a comparison, we don't really know. So, and there's still people we need to convince that this is a problem, right? Or that when we talk about alcohol, marijuana, prescription drugs, right? Some people are really like, right, there's a lot of attention on prescription drugs right now. Everyone, I mean, from the president on down, there's a high attention. But we still need to make a case for, addressing alcohol or addressing marijuana. Why is that important? Why should, it's not as dangerous. No, it is pretty dangerous. Marijuana use is pretty dangerous, and we need to make sure that people understand the consequences.
For IYS, is it only selected schools, or is it all schools that we should be reaching out to?
I'm going to get into that, so that's a good question. All right, so, and so with the IYS, I just want to say that we're gonna take a minute just to look at some of the resources, again, that were posted as part of the notice of funding opportunity. But we wanna improve the availability and the quality. So I just wanna say a minute about what I mean by quality. So if I have, I'm just gonna make up a community. If I'm in Bridgeport, and there are 20 schools, and I recruit 2. That's good for those 2 schools, that's good. However, it's not really representative. I can't say, well, this is what the problem looks like in this community in Bridgeport, because only 2 of the 20 participated. It's not representative, and that's what we're striving toward. We want it to be representative of the audience that we're trying to say something about, we want to share information about. So we're striving for a 70% benchmark. We're striving really high.
Kim, I know this has always been a challenge with the CPS schools. Is there any support we're getting from the administration from CPS?
There is. I mean, we're trying to get a letter. It's actually built into their, you know, one of the notifications is built into their guide. We are, you know, CPRD, Center for Prevention, Research, and Development, is meeting with them. It's just ongoing issues in terms of trying to push that information out. Kind of the same issues we have at our level are kind of at their level too. And that's why you're so important to this discussion. As much as we want to do top down, and I am, you know, you guys kind of put that on me, and I took it very seriously. We are trying to facilitate how can they be supportive, but it really starts with you guys as well. You're so important to reaching out to those contacts that you have and making sure they understand the importance and how it's going to help them. And I can't stress that enough. You just have better relationships than we will ever have, whether it be at headquarters CPS or at the state. And so you're a critical, you know, you play such a critical role in that information dissemination, and that's why we're requiring it now, because we can do things and get a letter from the state super and get a letter from Forest Claypool, and some will pay attention to that, and others will be like, that was nice, next, and not want to do anything with that information. So, go ahead.
If we get a letter to the chief educational network chiefs, they're really the ones that deal with the schools on a monthly basis, so the education, the chief, what's the right
So
title?
maybe if we can, Ann, can you write that down, because I don't.
That's
Yeah.
Sorry, Al, what did you say?
They're
that
called the
title?
Chief
The chief
Educational
networks
Networks.
of the different networks. I mean, they're the ones that meet monthly with the principals.
Okay.
And so if a letter could go right to them, that would be, I think,
That's
be
good to
helpful.
know. Maybe if, I don't know if they meet collectively, but if we can get to them,
Yeah.
we would love to do that. Yeah.
Is there gonna be training offered?
Yes.
To kind of also help?
Absolutely.
How they go
Yep.
through the process?
Yes. So some of you, and I'm gonna, we'll get to that, it's probably one of my upcoming slides, so if I don't talk on these, then you can hold me accountable. All right, so I'm gonna, that's a good recommendation, and I'm open to, yeah, what is that, where are those critical points, or who seems to be influential? We absolutely wanna to do that, yes.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much. So some of the regions, they have more than one neighborhood, like 4 or 5 neighborhoods.
Sure.
So we reach, you know, like times the number of schools that there are in each community. That will be like a very large amount of schools. So how are we gonna go about that?
Well, but you have multiple staff, you're gonna have to divide and conquer.
So you want 70% in each neighborhood?
Yeah, I do. And that's one of the, yeah, so that's a concerted effort towards moving in that direction. And you'll have to think about how to make that happen. And I know it's possible. I've seen other communities successfully do it, but you have to have a strategy. So, and that's part of it. We've kind of been doing it. I will say, I can say probably this with some certainty. Sending one email to a principal, or, you know, in a host of the 300 emails they get, is not going to be the way. You really have to think about, and people are shaking their heads because some of you have been intimately involved in this, what it really takes. And that's what we're hoping to share. What are those successes? So we are going to offer training. We are trying to capture, yeah, what are those most effective ways of doing this. But we do want you to really try to do all of them in that region, because if we don't, then we're never going to build that capacity going forward.
So I know with our population, we're working with very recently arrived English language learners. So I'm wondering if two things. First, if there's a way we can get this in multiple languages, or if not, if there's a way we can get it in more of like a simplified English language learner. Just because I've seen it before and it seems a little, I know that some of our students would struggle with the question.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I can't make a full-blown commitment at this point.
Sure.
It's something we need to take down. We are trying to be mindful of language. We do recognize that terminology, what we understand as adults, doesn't mean it's going to be understandable in reading level and things of that nature. Some of it, though, will be, one of the things we're always striving towards is using validated questions. So questions that we know are tested to be effective and things like that. And to have that national comparison, so if it's asked a little bit differently, you might be like, well, that seems to get it the same. It really doesn't. So we have to have that consistency from one question at the state level to a national. So those are, I'm just sharing that because there might be instances where we can't really change the terminology that much. And perhaps we could make sure I get your name afterwards and get. If you have some other ideas.
I mean, there's multiple languages, but there might be some that we could like really hone in on that would really help, like Arabic, for example. Yeah. Would be helpful, but yeah. But I understand.
Yeah, it's a little, I mean, honestly, and this is another thing, like even Spanish, we have found that making it available in Spanish, very small numbers are requesting it in Spanish.
Really?
Really, yeah, and so we think the need is great, and that's why we've been doing it, and then very small numbers are requested in that. So that's part of it too, is weighing the cost benefit, so.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so, oh yeah.
Yeah, in 2014, it was 6th through 12th grade, and then in 2016, 6th grade was an option.
Correct.
But I see it here, so is the 6th grade gonna be an option for the school, or you want
We're
us
really
to?
moving 8th, 10th, and 12th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We really want that to be you've got enough to do, so it's gonna be 8th, 10th, and 12th.
Okay.
Often, there's not a national comparison for 6th grade.
Yeah.
That was something we kind of dabbled in a little bit. Some of the questions, there was some level of sensitivity to.
Yeah.
Some folks really had an issue, like, should we really be asking a 6th grade student that question? So there is, weighing the pros and cons. It's nice to have to see trends, right? And to see, like, the 6th graders better? Are they getting, an 8th? I mean, there's always, the one thing about use or consumption by youth, there's always a gradual increase. And so what we're trying to do is slow that down. We want it to be less, in the future. Or, of course, if we can deter and push that out, like the age, if you use before age 15, that is a very strong indicator of future, potential dependence and addiction. So that's a real, critical one we want to look at, and that's why we start the services at the grade we do. But we want to, it's nice to see, are we getting better, are we getting worse? We're kind of holding it, and those are really important things to keep in mind. All right. All right, so we've been talking about service area or region, again, terms of using interchangeably. You are serving a specific region and is comprised of 3 or more Chicago community areas. I just thought it'd be helpful. This was a question in the FAQ, but I thought it would just be helpful. I don't know if everyone reviewed that thoroughly, but how we determine those regions. So we did keep in mind, I kept in mind the demographics, by race, the socioeconomic status, the size, the actual number of CCAs, and then the borders, that they would all at least, potentially touch each other. So we didn't want to send people, well, you're going to do the south side community, and do a north side communities, and west. I mean, that would be very difficult. So that was some of the thinking in putting these regions together. And by using this new approach, In FY17, we funded 27 of 77 neighborhoods. That's not great. That was 35% of the coverage, and that's, in the city. When we think about all the issues going on in the city, that was just unacceptable. So by using this new approach, now we're serving 58 of 77, which is 75%. And so, and we're hoping that that you will, again, certain services that you can really reach into new communities and begin to initiate services. Part of it is we had 4 areas that didn't even apply. So what does that mean? They didn't have need? I don't believe that. But we didn't have anyone submit a proposal. So there are still places in the city that we have gaps. And so we're trying to make sure that the services are as far-reaching as possible. And some areas haven't had any exposure to our services before. They don't know what substance abuse prevention services. They don't know what the Illinois Youth Survey is. So hopefully this will begin to, we can begin to generate, some are really ready for prevention, right? There's a lot of capacity, and others are like, they don't even know what you're talking about. So it's going to be interesting in terms of getting the word out and getting people to the table. The one thing, so that's a little bit about the service and region. So the target population is, just to reiterate, is there's one exception with one curriculum, but in general is 6th to 12th grade or 12 to 18-year-olds. That's our target population. I will say though, I just talked about the prescription, and some of that is really meant to focus on adults. And again, the universal and selective populations, universal is just the general population, and then we know some kids are at higher risk. We're not really doing things to distinguish them and pull them out. We just know that they're part of the population, and so when you're looking at putting those youth groups together, that you would think about those youth as well. And I'm going to spend a lot of time in the next 25 minutes talking about the deliverables associated with your grants, and that you are required to deliver all of the deliverables, all those services. It's just some are going to be to a greater or lesser degree, and also kind of acknowledging that relationships with schools ebb and flow, right? New administration comes in, they don't want anybody in their building, where am I going next? And then you're like on a mad tear to figure out what am I going to do. Well, hopefully in the new grant, it gives you a little bit more flexibility. You have this service area, you'll be allowed to work in several areas and maybe generate new schools that might be interested in these services that previously may have not ever, again, thought about as one example, that type of grant service. Okay. So the first one is the youth prevention education, their evidence-based model programs that you're promoting. And again, so of course they show outcomes in for other substances, but we know for sure that these have been demonstrated or show results in the area of marijuana, which is again one of the focus areas. So one of the other things that is new is an opportunity to incorporate some new information about the opioids to make sure that youth do understand that they're at risk. So if they're at a party or someone's offering them something, a friend of theirs and just after school, that they understand the risk involved in using that. We are actually in the process of looking at and trying to make it potentially a one session if possible. It is multiple sessions, but we want to incorporate at least one. We're actually in conversations with the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, to try to do that work. So one of the things, I want you to start the YPE delivery. But since we don't have exactly the session to share with you at this point, you will not be held accountable to delivering it until we make it available. We are hoping that will be at the end of October. That shouldn't delay your services initiating. So any services then that start November forward would incorporate this session. You're not going to be penalized for not implementing that particular session. But we want to make sure that we're providing the best information. Again, we're allowing you the flexibility perhaps of where it could be incorporated, where's the best place in the sequence of the curriculum. And for each one that differs, Too Good for Drugs and All-Stars and life skills, they all look a little bit different. You'll have that discretion. But we'll be providing more guidance that will be shared through Prevention First. And so, again, that will be probably towards the end of fall as to what we're rolling out. And there might be some additional information that accompanies it, maybe a webinar. We'll kind of make that call after we see it.
So are we looking for the time spent within the schools to then grow one more day?
Potentially, yes.
Switch out a session?
Yes, ideally, right. Because we always want you to deliver with fidelity, as designed. That's how we know we're seeing outcomes. So, and that's another actually good segue is that it's going to be really important. We're creating a handout just to really clearly specify what's core and booster, or might be core, booster 1, and booster 2. The way they were able to demonstrate outcomes is delivery of all three, not just core and booster. So whatever curricula that you selected, you're going to be required to administer all of the sessions, across grade. That's what we want to see, is that you're delivering it as designed. And I think there's been a little confusion about doing 1 year and then an optional curriculum. It's an optional curriculum. So it's really important that you look at this handout again, maybe to make sure that you're going to follow what we're putting out in terms of the guidance. It's similar, but we're really honing in on making sure we're very clear about what we mean by fidelity, I guess.
I have a question about the opiate.
Yes.
During the proposal process, there was a link to
Yeah,
that.
yes.
And so we thought that was what we were supposed to be using for the high school and the middle school. So,
And now we're saying we're going to re-examine that and really try to hone it in to be one session, because right now it's multiple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So
And you said.
glad you looked at it.
Yeah, we did.
Absolutely, good thing.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to be sharing additional information about, and hopefully by the end of October, if not sooner. And actually, that's a good segue to the next slide. So that was the resource, the website we shared. The other thing I wanted to provide just a little clarity around, because I think some folks were confused by this. The one thing about our programming is we do look to school day, because they're captive audience. We know they're going to be there. We hope that mobility isn't high. I mean, there's always some degree, but that gives us the best chance of delivering with fidelity. And we want to do it across grade levels. So we don't want to just, if there's 10 freshman class, we don't want to, again, pick one. We want it to, to be as far-reaching as possible. So it's really important that you're not going in and negotiating. We're going to only do 2 classrooms of your 20. We want to do the entire grade, all the 9th graders, all the 6th, might be core 6th graders, and then next year we're going to do 7th grade. So, you're going in and you're having that conversation, so they're not, what are you doing here? We already did it. No. In order to do it with fidelity, core is this year, and next year we come back and we do it with the 7th grade students. The number of sessions might differ, of course. So those are the kind of conversations and agreements you need to be establishing. Yeah.
So we just switched curriculums. So are we starting from scratch as like a core, or are we delivering a booster, although it's a new curriculum?
That's a good question. I'm going to get to that one too. Any other?
Yeah, because that's what I was wondering too.
Yeah.
So it's all new for us. So to say this year, we will do the 7th grade. All the 7th grades will be a core.
Mm-hmm.
Then next year, we come back to that same school, but then we will be serving the 8th grade.
Correct.
Okay.
If that's the curriculum, core, 1 year, and booster the next.
And then the following year, we come back around and we do the core again.
Exactly.
And booster. Okay.
You got it.
All right.
Okay. So that's the segue into, so if you're starting new curriculum, you're gonna deliver in 18, you're delivering core. If you delivered a model program in fiscal year 17, you will be allowed to do boosters if you did core in 17. So if it was a model program, you're not required, but you can. So if I did life skills training with 6th graders in FY17, and I'd like to do life skills training in FY18 and do my boosters, you're gonna be allowed to do that. Only if it was a model program though. And you're not required. You can start from, we're gonna do everybody core this year, we're gonna use our new curriculum, that's fine. So that will be at your discretion. If you want, some, feel a little like, oh, if I don't do this, I might not be able to maintain that relationship, so we're gonna give you that avenue. But if you can work it out and start afresh, we're open to that as well. Too Good for Drugs. That is the only curriculum we're allowing to dip down 1 grade to 5th grade. All the other ones would be 6th, 7th, 8th, or 7th, 8th, or one is for high school. But this is the only one where you're going to be allowed to start core at 5th grade. Again, we're asking that the opioid sessions are delivered in the core sessions. Because if I'm doing boosters, it's just, I think it could get very confusing. So we're just going to keep them at the core. As I talked about, there's going to be a new handout just to make sure everyone's really clear on what we mean by that. And another question I got out there was, core and boosters cannot be delivered in the same school year. So it's really meant for one school year and then the following school year, and then if applicable, the following school year. But you're not allowed to do core fall, spring, booster. Just a couple of other things about this. The only curriculum that requires training prior to delivery is All-Stars. All-Star training can be delivered online, and we're going to be offering an annual, I don't want to steal her thunder, she'll be talking about that in a few minutes. Yep. All the other curriculums, they don't require prior training. We're recommending it. We want you to get training. Either the foundations prevention training that we provide, youth prevention education, or the model program developer training. We're going to be bringing some of those in. But here's the thing. There's going to be times, though, that we're going to offer a training, and 2 weeks later you hired staff. And they're not going to be able to go to that training. And then they're going to be like, what do I do now? You need to figure out other ways to help your staff get the training that they need. We are not going to be able to have training on demand. It's just not going to be feasible. And that should not be a deterrence from you delivering this service. So you can't say, I'm waiting for training and can't deliver it for 8 months. No. I've heard that. I couldn't get the training. I'm like, no. So I want to be really clear that you're expected to deliver the training, unless it's All-Stars. You're expected to figure out how to, maybe it's job shadowing, maybe it's mentoring, maybe it's coming to prevention first and sitting down with someone like Jody and reviewing the curriculum. You're going to need to be creative in how to help your staff get the skills that they need, get the, maybe they're, like I said, and then if our agency doesn't do this, maybe I call another one. You guys are now a network. You can help each other. We do this curriculum. I'm going to come watch you do it. You really need to make sure that you're delivering the services and they're not waiting on the training. The other thing is, some of you proposed, I know that the no-fault process, 30 days, 40 days, you couldn't get every last agreement. So we want you to continually kind of assess, can we get into other schools? We know that you couldn't possibly list every school. Some of you really worked hard, you got all the agreements in place, you're ready to go. Some of you got 2 agreements in place or 1 agreement in place. So we want you to continually assess, can we do other youth prevention education services in other schools, even though I didn't propose it initially in my application. So that's another message. I want to be really clear. You should be going out, knocking on doors, seeing who else is interested, even though it wasn't in your original application. Yes?
In the past, we've gone into community settings, like churches or summer programs. Is that still something that we'll be able to ask for permission to do?
It's not gonna, it would be on top of what you're doing in the school. It would never be a replacement.
Of course.
So, and honestly, it could be a little hard for us because we don't have the same kind of activity that really wasn't identified in some way. So that, you know, really we want that focus area to be in school as a primary. We don't, you know, I don't want to send a mixed message that we're looking for that community-based because of all the issues with community-based delivery.
Okay.
So,
Got it.
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm forgetting my question. Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay, no problem. Let me just say a couple of, make sure I'm covering all my points on this one. Okay, so I talked about that. I think I'm good. Need to keep moving here. All right, let's move on. All right, so communication campaigns. Some folks were delivering this. So what's important to know is that planning is underway. Probably should swap the order of these. You should not be doing anything in terms of communication campaigns yet. Just hold off any, as it relates to the marijuana campaign. So you're not expected to, again, to do anything yet. In approximately 6 months, we're going to be rolling out some information, some training to help you, because now we're really looking at it right now as a city level issue. You're going to see in a minute why this is important. We don't have good community level data to justify our objectives and our campaigns. We just don't. Maybe we have a particular school, there are still issues there in some instances. So we're going to come at it from a city level focus. And there's, we're going to roll out all the information about what's expected, but right now, you should not be hiring anyone to be a graphic designer, developing objectives for your campaign, none of that. Just hold off and we'll share more guidance in the near future. All right, now, for the prescription drug, this is going to be a state level focus. We are going to be focusing on a contributing factor referred to as social access. We know that, unfortunately, many people are getting prescription drugs by taking them from a parent, taking them out of someone's home. Maybe it was prescribed to them and they start using it in a non-medical manner. So we are going to address it through looking at safe storage and safe disposal. And we're going to be developing materials to help you get this information out. So about safe disposal, can I flush this down a toilet? Do I have to do another way of, you know, maybe integrating in my coffee grounds? Can I, if I don't have a drug take-back program, where is one in my community? So we want to make sure that people understand what the options are related to disposal. And then storage. So if I'm someone who uses this because I have a true medical need, how do I make sure that someone doesn't have access to it? It's kind of like thinking about the same way we don't want to leave alcohol sometimes in the garage or on the back porch that's readily available for my friend's friend coming over and then picking that up and walking out of it. So you might need to make sure that you're a little bit more mindful and watchful of what you have in your home. So we want to make sure that we're getting that information out. And then who are the audiences who need that information? Senior citizens, realtors, people who, you know, even funeral homes, you know, someone just passed, the loved one was using a lot of pain medication, what do I do with this now? So there's a lot of places that we can give this information to, so that they understand how do I get, you know, what's the proper way of disposing of this? So this is something, again, that is going to make it safer for youth and really hopefully safer for adults. And we want to make sure that you have good tools and information. And we'll be rolling out, again, materials for you to disseminate as well as training, and then really relying on you as you get to know these communities for that outreach. Where are the best places to share this information? And again, we anticipate in the next 3 months or so that we'll have this ready for you to disseminate. All right, next one. So Illinois Youth Survey, let me do a quick time check. We're like 5 minutes away from 11:30. Does anyone have, if you have to run out, you know, we said it was until 11:30, but if you can stick with me probably for another 15, 20, I'll try to talk faster. The public schools are going to be the primary focus. You're encouraged if you can, we know there are charter schools, private schools, parochial schools, we encourage their participation. But we're really looking to see a boost in terms of the number of public schools participating. Public schools are critical to our sample, are critical to really the, ones we know the most about. And so it's really difficult to say exactly what should be done in terms of charters or public. We always want to bring them in. Alternative schools would also be welcome, but in terms of what you're going to be held accountable to, it's going to be public. One of the reporting deliverables was the development of an IYS recruitment plan. So the original deadline was September, at the end of September. We've moved it. We're going to give you a tool. The new deadline is in yellow, October 31st. That is the new deadline that you'll need to give that to us. We'll be, again, sharing this during training, or if you feel like I've gone to the last IYS training, I think I have a good handle, we'll make sure that you have access to the tool, without attending the training as well. So if you feel like, yeah, I know how to do this, I know all about the survey, just need to see the 2018 version, I'm ready to roll, that's fine. We encourage you, everyone to participate again. If you haven't participated, we want you to be there. And then, another little nuance that's new is you're going to tell us about your recruitment plans. So I projected I was going to meet with this school, I'm going to meet with this community group, I'm going to meet with the regional network chief. Did you do it? Tell us how it went. The other thing I'd say about the survey is it's kind of like, I'm a sports person, a hurdle race. The first hurdle is getting in the door, talking about it. The next hurdle, okay, they agreed to participate, fantastic. That's a really important one. Next hurdle, are they going to do it well? Do they have a good plan for implementation, for administration? Oh, I didn't know how to, I had to get these surveys done this week. I didn't plan for that. So it might be I need to come and talk to the teachers. I need to talk with the administrators. How am I gonna, maybe I help them package it and put together packets that are just given and distributed to every teacher. So there's lots of ways you can be supportive in this work, and then you can track things on the CPRD website to see, yep, they registered, yep, they had good, they administered. So these are all important to our success. So I'm going to do a quick handout. Yeah. Thank you. So this was part of, and I realize now this is not the best copy. So this was the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity. This was one of the appendices that was included when we wrote this out. And we'll try to make sure a color copy is perhaps posted, and again, you can go back. But basically, there are lots of places in the city that are no schools completed, a lot of 1 to 25%, a lot of under 50%, lots of communities. I think there were two out of 77 that had data that we could even post on the website. We have a lot of work to do as a city. I can't stress enough how much data is needed for our work. The reason we've been competitive with discretionary grants is because we have good state level data, and quite frankly, when I'm looking to fund subrecipients, it has to do with data. I justify it by saying I can pick this community over this community because I can say with certainty their rates are higher here. And that's actually what we're going to be moving towards. It's not just, do you have capacity as an agency to deliver? Yeah, do we want to know that? Absolutely. But we also want to know, we're investing in the communities that really show there's an issue here we need to address. And they might get higher priority than another one where we can't say what the nature of the issue is. So we want to be able to move towards a data-driven. And right now, we met our city level sample, the last administration, fantastic. By community, abysmal, horrible. I don't want to sugarcoat this, as you can see. So I need, this is a really important task that all of you really need to, that's why we're looking to you. This is not, like I said, I will do our part at the state level. We really need people on the ground and to understand the importance because, again, people can kind of push it away or don't believe it. And having objective data is really an important part of our case, so to speak, is be able to make a case of why youth prevention education services are needed, why we need to do environmental scans, why we need to do X, Y, and Z. It's when we have data plus capacity in the community is when we can make great things happen. But one or the other is kind of lacking. The other thing.
One more question about
that.
Jessica Thomas was awesome.
Yes.
I could call her up and
yes.
She helped me through the process with the recruitment.
Yep.
So it's going to be hard to replace her, but my question
she is replaced. She just got,
so
yes.
will we be able to have that same access to
yes.
who that person
yep.
is to help us?
They just brought someone on to replace her. She was just hired, I think, in the last week.
Okay.
And so I will make sure that that's another note we make, is that we share that that new contact. And she was actually someone who worked she was a prevention worker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she did it herself. She recruited.
Okay.
So we feel like that's going to be a really good point of contact.
Okay.
Because she knows what it was like firsthand, right?
Do we need more of these as well?
Maybe one per agency at this
point.
Let me
One
see
per
if I
agency.
can. So, I have another, no. So you should have an 8th grade building and 8th grade and high school. So this was very quickly pulled together. One of the things we're hoping to is we really want to confirm and make sure that we understand. We call it now, I feel like I've coined this term, or we've coined this term, the school universe. What is your school universe? Which means, what are the schools in your service area that you're going to be held accountable and responsible for? So we've done a quick, this is something CPRD helped pull together for this meeting, is we pulled it together simply based on your service area, your defined area. One of the things we're going to need to understand from you when you have more time to look at this is to be able to say, yeah, that school belongs, or that school belongs, or no, that school doesn't belong in my school universe. So I want you to take this back. I want you to look at it, and I want you to be able to say, yeah, it belongs, or no, it doesn't, and I want to understand a rationale. That's one of your tasks. We'll probably, find and we want to get that feedback from you. The other thing is, in the city, so Lurie's Children's Hospital is funded for a discretionary grant. They're doing some IYS recruitment. If the drug-free community support grantees, who I don't have any authority over, are also doing IYS recruitment in some neighborhoods in the city. We would love to bring all of you together and have a meeting and really begin to dive into who's working with that school, who has the best relationship with that school, and kind of identify maybe someone, maybe I'm just kind of calling it like a lead agency to say, yeah, it makes sense, you're going to take the lead, you have the best relationship, even though maybe another agency is also, like a drug-free community support grantee, is also trying to get in and making sure they're participating. So that we don't have duplication, we don't have two agencies trying to get the attention of the principal, that we can say, okay, I'm taking it off your list, you're going to be the lead on that one. And the drug-free community support grantees, that's something all of you should be thinking about. I'm actually hoping that we can do, how many people know what that grant is? Okay. So it's federal funding It's managed by the federal agency, SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services, same who funds our block grant. And it's grants for $125,000 a year. And there is a match, but the match can be hard or soft, which means hard, hard in terms of actual dollars, soft meaning in kind. And that you can bring additional resources to your community. They're competitive, but I've seen many, we're starting to see an increase in the number funded in Illinois and in the city, which is a wonderful thing. But sometimes you have to apply more than once, get that feedback, and strengthen your proposal next year. You have to have a coalition, you have to have engaged in evidence-based services. So that's something that we want to make sure that everyone's aware of. I send out the announcements every year. It's a wonderful funding source that can help bring additional resources to particular communities. And so that's another really good reason to be looking out for the data, because those grants, right now I can't really talk about, dollars are rolling in terms of opioid prevention. Can't say that I've been seeing a lot of other opportunities. But the DFC, they've been really constant, consistent, and there's a lot of federal support for that particular grant program. So that, if you want to diversify your funding, if you want to, it's a good way to be thinking.
I have two things. One is it's an extreme challenge to get those grants.
It's not, no, because, we went from 2 in the city, I think we're like 5 or 6 now. So it's not, I don't want to create this up here when, you have to have capacity, you have to have good data, you have to have a logic model, the things we talk about. So it's not impossible. Go ahead.
The second point is I'm thinking about the IYS support and thinking that if a letter could be given to all of the aldermen in terms of the importance of the Illinois Youth Survey and how that would help bring additional resources to the communities, I think the aldermen would also be another good group to send letters to.
Okay. If they can be influential with their schools, then. So with that list, we're going to be asking you to, again, when you have more time, to go back and do a crosswalk. Yeah, this matches what we put in our application, or not so sure that school really belongs. And then we'll, have a way of you communicating, and then hopefully at this meeting that is broader, we can have some of that dialogue. Okay. So that will be, and we'll want at least one person from your agency at that meeting. All right, so here are some of the other, so the National Prevention Week is new, yes?
Some meeting regarding pulling everybody
Yeah.
together around that. Do you have an expected planned date for that?
Hopefully sooner than later, because we want you to be able to, for that recruitment plan, have that information, so we want to give you.
October?
No, probably sooner.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So the dates for the National Prevention Week have been posted. This is the website link you would go to look for that. So you're expected to do the prescription drug and the marijuana. The weeks are in May, but you're going to need to have your date scheduled by March. Because what we're going to do is we want to try to bring some media attention, some focus, be able to direct people. And so you're going to be, Prevention First is going to develop a form that you'll need to complete. We're going to post it on the Prevention First website. There'll be press releases going out. Because we want to, this is one small way of being able to say, hey, these are things we need to focus on. And hopefully get some higher level attention. And really do this as kind of a citywide initiative that all these different communities or all these different regions are hosting events to draw attention to this particular issue. Here's why. Because right now we're fighting a very uphill battle as it relates to marijuana, right? There's a lot of information out there as states are moving in very different directions in terms of this particular substance. Yes?
Does the activity, would it be all right to do it during school hours, or is it more community?
Yeah, it's up to your discretion as to when it's held. You'll know the community as to what would be the best approach. If it makes sense on doing it. You know, we'll probably also give you some parameters on, does it have to be on the actual day? Could it be on the weekend? And that kind of thing. We are looking for though two distinct, it's not to meld it into one.
But as far as population, it's not just students or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we can find a way of, maybe it's gonna be, because it's, when you talk about underage drinking, or, of course, that would be, the focus is making sure that it's youth. But it's really to bring general community awareness, so it might be a lot of youth engaged in planning, youth focused, but you wanna make sure it's really drawing the attention of everyone in that particular community. So it's not limited to youth on youth, I guess, if that makes sense. So on their website, you'll find webinars, toolkits, promotional. Prevention First is going to have a link. So that's just a little bit about that. The environmental scan, another activity that don't initiate services at this point. We will be rolling out a tool, rolling out a training. So, and then that will help you know. And then we'll be looking at, well, what kind of training should be provided to retailers. So that's something else you can hold tight on. You're not going to initiate anything. The drug take-back programs, that is something that we do want you to start, is looking out in your communities. Where can I drop off prescription drugs? Is it at the Walgreens? Is it at a police department? Are there other places in the community that may be a hospital or a clinic? And create that directory that you can eventually distribute, and hopefully you're not going to probably have that ready in 3 months, but hopefully that could accompany then your safe disposal, safe storage information too. Like, you know, it's just packaging that and making sure that people know where those places are. And then again, would be in the entire region. And then the Youth Advisory Committee, again, another activity that we think you can get started now, and the resource guide as well. So, because some people are like, what should I be doing now? And so there are definitely activities that you can initiate services, youth prevention, the IYS recruitment, the resource guide, the youth advisory, your drug take back. Out of all of the activities, we really expect that the IYS and the drug take back are really ones that can be across the entire region. We understand that YPE is going to take a little while. How we go out there and promote. You might have schools that you're able to get services because of previous relationships, but in other instances, you're going to be opening or knocking on doors and doing outreach for the first time. So we understand, but then you'll have the opportunity to add those schools if needed as you go. And really, I can't stress enough that, aim high. Same, with the youth, with the YPE services. Don't go for, I can't remember exactly now what I said, like 12 kids. Because we know that recruiting 12, that there's going to drop to 6, right? So aim high for 25, or, because not every youth is going to participate in every meeting. Same thing with YPE. Yeah, I didn't give you a number, but we want you to do as many as your agency can handle with the staff that can handle. The more prevention we're doing, the better. And so we don't want you to, kind of like, yeah, I'm in 2 schools, I've met the DHS requirement. No, we want you to do as much as possible and continue to, within reason. I'm not saying like work crazy hours, but we really want you to kind of do as much as possible, just expand that reach of services, because it's really important. If we're going to begin to make a difference, it's not just about 30, we're not just about 30 kids, it's about reaching 300 kids in the community. We have to start changing the norm, and if I do small numbers, it's really hard to make that happen.
Just one quick question, the environmental scan, when did you say the training would be on this?
I don't have the exact date.
Okay.
It's going to be forthcoming.
Okay.
All right, so reporting, this is just highlighting, this is in your, the NOFO, it's just reiterating. The only one, I talked about the date for the IYS recruitment plan. The status updates, we'll roll that out when the training or the form is rolled out. So you're going to tell us, again, this is how I'm recruiting, this is what I did, and at least I believe we've already said 4 times you're gonna have to tell us, this is what I've done. So at least 4 times during this fiscal year, you're gonna share, and this is my update about how it's going with recruiting these schools. All right, so, all right, so really, this one might change depending on when we roll out the training for communication, and this one as well. But in general, again, if it changes, we'll be sure to make sure that's shared with all of you. All right, Hub, Prevention Hub, we're still going to be using that. It is shut down right now. You cannot go in and report. So your agency is not required from July 1 to September 30th to report in the Hub. But you're highly encouraged to do so after it reopens. We'd love to hear, that, yeah, we did. We started our YPE and we did it in this, we served 100 students. You're going to be required starting Q2, okay, which will be October then for the remainder of the year. And that it will reopen or be up on October 1st. So some of you might be going, what's the Hub? So the Hub is our way of collecting information about your services, how many people were served, how many hours were devoted to it, and it's going to mirror, we needed a little bit of time to update it to reflect the new services that we're delivering. And then it just reiterates, or I'm not sure if I shared this in the NOFO, but these are the reporting dates. It's just really 30 days roughly after the quarter that we want to see the data entered. All right, so with that, I apologize, we're running over. Ann's going to just take a couple minutes to review some Prevention First information.
I'm just going to pull up my slides. I promise you I will talk really fast. And you can always email me afterwards if you have questions about our services here at Prevention First. So I think there were a few folks who came in just a little bit late. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ann Cox. I'm the Manager of Substance Abuse Prevention Training and Technical Assistance here at Prevention First. With me this morning is Jody Hadlin. Jody is one of our training and technical assistance specialists. So if you have not been to any of our trainings and are coming this year, you will most likely meet Jody, as well as Kim Zamboli, who's our Master Training and Technical Assistance Specialist. We have a number of other staff, and we'll let Jody catch up to me here, that also work in our professional development department, and our professional development department provides all of those professional development services that you can avail yourself of, training, technical assistance, as well as the resources that we develop to support the work that you're doing. We do, just again, for those of you not real familiar with our services, we do develop our own trainings here in-house. So along with SAP leadership, we identify the professional development needs of the system on an annual basis. As you all know, as you've heard from Kim, this is a brand new system. So typically we're a little further along than what we are currently right now. As you heard from Kim, we're still in the planning process with some of the strategies in terms of developing trainings and requirements. So communication campaigns, the environmental scan, that's coming down the pike from us. You'll just be patient with us. This is a new contract, some new contract deliverables for us here at Prevention First as well. So that just takes time to develop the trainings as well as the support resources that will go along with that. Yes, ma'am.
So we've never done a communications campaign. It's actually one of my questions. It does say that it's 9 months. Is that true that that's a requirement?
So because of, again, what I shared earlier, we are actually, it's not probably going to be 9 months for planning. It's going to be us rolling some things out, and then that will then trigger what your next steps are.
Okay.
And it might be faster than 9 months, which is potentially a good thing, but you don't need to worry about it right now in terms of the exact, because we're still really, in some ways, we just want to make sure that whatever we're rolling out now is really meeting the need. In terms of using good data, in terms of really good messages, and then also what we're asking you to do with that information, so.
Yeah, we were sort of like, oh, we better hurry up and get on this
Yeah.
because it's 9 months. Yeah.
Right, so you can put that aside and the environmental scan aside.
Right, so until you hear from DHS leadership or from us that communication campaign training is available, sometime way later this year.
Yeah, maybe until, might not be until the new calendar year, or a
Yes.
little after that. Mhm.
So you can just put that worry aside.
Yeah, plenty of
and-
other stuff to do now.
Right, and focus on those things that Kim just shared with you. Let me talk a little bit about SAP training, substance abuse prevention training. Prevention First is charged, as I said, with training, technical assistance, and professional development resources for substance abuse prevention providers. That's our main charge as it relates to all of you. So we do offer a variety of online self-study courses. If you've gone to our training page on our website, you can take a look at those. We have many of those up right now. Classroom-based trainings as well as webinar trainings. We just started putting trainings up last week. Again, usually by now I have a training plan complete. I have trainings that are starting to go up. And usually we have them for the entire calendar year put up by the 3rd or 4th week of July. That will not happen this year because we are still in the process of planning for this whole new system. You will see trainings coming out, across probably the next several months. So, and I'm going to talk to you about how we are going to communicate that to you here in just a couple of minutes. But I just wanted to let you know that. So if you're looking for particular training, you can always contact me and I can let you know around the time frame that we might have that up. With that said, last week we did start putting trainings up. Youth prevention education should be up by the end of the day today, I believe. We have a training, a great skill building training if you have not gone to it, called Effective Group Facilitation. That's mid-August here in our Chicago office. Jody's one of the trainers for that, in fact. And so we're going to kick off our year with that effective group facilitation training. Our new worker training is under revision right now with the new changes in the new system. So we will not start training that until November. Those trainings should be up too. Same requirements apply as before for those of you who have been in the system. So you have to do ISAP 1 first, which is an online self-study. You can then go to the classroom-based training and then do ISAP 2 after that. What I will tell you is we're going to do a November and December training for new worker. ISAP 1 and 2 will not be done much before that because it's a 3-part series and we're still in that revision process. So be looking for that to come out again. We'll be making announcements about when those online trainings are back up and ready for you to take if you have new workers.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I know you mentioned that you're gonna be developing the list, but Kim mentioned earlier that the All-Stars,
Yep.
you can do online. My question is, because we had a standards base all these years, and now we're switching to the evidence base, with the All-Stars, will you, think you're gonna offer it here if we don't do it online?
Yes,
Because,
yes.
oh, because they charge you online.
Just getting to that. So,
Okay.
yeah, what I can tell you is I'm just developing contracts for 2 model program curricula, and I have to have DHS approval first for that, so I should have that, I hope, this week yet. And so I would look towards the end of this week or early next week. All-Stars will be on the 29th and 30th of August here in our Chicago office. So that's the core and booster. It's a 2-day training. The developer does require that you take that training. You can either do it online, as you said, but then you will be paying for it. Or you can come here to our office and do a face-to-face with the developer. And it's a great training, so I would highly recommend. And it should be up, like I said, by the end of this week or early next week, so you can register for it then. Project Towards No Drug Abuse will be on the 31st of August here in our Chicago office. It's a 1-day training. Again, look for that at the end of this week, early next week. You can get online and register for that. The other thing I want to mention is we currently have a model program survey that all of you should have gotten. I would ask for your cooperation in please filling that out and getting it back to us. We too try to be good stewards of the state's resources and federal resources, so we want to offer up trainings to you, model program curricula trainings, but we need to know that we have enough folks that need to actually take that. It's a lot more cost intensive to bring in the developers to actually do the trainings, so we try to have, as many folks as possible. And like Kim alluded to earlier, we can't just offer those up time and time again throughout the year. So All Stars and Project Towards No Drug Abuse, this will probably be it for the year. Too Good for Drugs, we have an in-house trainer. So once I get that survey back and analyze the data from all of you, we'll let you know when Too Good for Drugs might be available if there's a need for that. We've also in July sent out through the Prevention Connection. Some of these trainings you can get online. Botman's Life Skills, Project Alert, you can take those online. So
And some are free,
and
right?
some are free,
Project Alert
yes.
are free?
Project Alert is free, that is correct, Kim. So if you have questions about that, I'm talking real fast because I'm trying to be respectful of your time. You can contact me, and we also have, as Kim said, we're developing a nice kind of cheat sheet on the model program curricula that you will be able to find on our website as well. Let's see, was there anything else with that? In terms of training requirements, we do not with the department yet, again, because we're still in that planning process. Usually you will see a FY18 required training chart that comes out from Illinois Department of Human Services SAP. Because we're still determining some of that. That has not gone up yet. It will go up at some point in time. I can't say when. However, what I will tell you to save myself a lot of phone calls too, is that per Kim, for DHS, the same training requirements apply as the old system. So if you have taken Foundations of YPE, if you have taken the IYS recruitment training, if you have taken the New Workers series and you've got your certificate, you do not need to repeat that. If you want to repeat Foundations of YPE because you need a refresher and you know, you want to, there's a few things that have changed, but they're very minor. So you don't have to, but you're always welcome, I think, to attend training. So that's, you know, same requirements as the old system apply to the new system. Look for the required training chart from DHS to come out sometime in the future. I don't want to commit to any sort of time frame
And
at
as
this
you
point.
hear, you know, as we're finalizing things, there will be things that we're gonna say, okay, now we're ready to roll out communication information, therefore, one designee will be required to participate. So this year is very much kind of as ready, then we'll notify you and, you know, try to be respectful and make sure you have enough notice. And it might be through, again, online or in person, but this year is very much developmental. And so just be patient, and when in doubt, in terms of training, you can always reach out to Prevention First staff.
Yeah, please feel free to contact me. One more quick thing about the IYS recruitment training, we should have those up today too. So if you elect to take that, again, if you've already taken it, you don't have to. We will be housing the tool on our website, as Kim said. As soon as that's developed, we will get that up. But you're also welcome. We'll have one training in Springfield at the end of September and one I think October 3rd here in Chicago. You're welcome to attend those as well. You know, if you want to learn more about the tool and how to develop that action planning tool that Kim talked about.
And in 2018, there will be some new questions. So we're trying to be, you know, we want to stay on trend. You know, if you think about like e-cigs, 5 years ago we weren't talking about vaping or e-cigs. We weren't talking about opioids the same way we are now. You know, and we're finding there might be some tweaks that we need to make. We're also, for the first time, I think we're going to be adding some questions about do you identify as gay, lesbian, transgender, to really make sure that we're embracing all kids and that we're understanding the populations that we're serving. So there's going to be some new things on the survey, so don't just think it's the same thing that you've seen in the past. It will be really important to familiarize, even if you've been through the training, and make sure you're going through the survey questions so that you're not blindsided when a principal is asking you about a particular question or response category. So just be on the lookout. And and again, we're in the midst of finalizing the questions. They have to go in for institutional review. And once they have the approval, then the new tool will be posted that you can download it and be able to look at the questions. And that will be, again, in advance of the work. So there will be some tweaking, a lot of consistency though. We don't want to change questions because then you can't look at trends. So.
One more quick thing. I'm sorry, Joe.
Sorry.
You keep trying to
push
push
me
me forward. I keep talking. One more quick thing I want to mention, for those of you who might not have ever registered for a training, you register for our trainings on our website at www.prevention.org. Go to the training tab, it'll guide you through it. Again, contact me if you have any kind of issues, or Cindy Dumbacher, who's in our Springfield office, if you're having trouble registering. Also, we have tweaked some of our training policies, and please make sure that you review those at the beginning of the fiscal year. We sometimes make adjustments to those based off of what is the best way to provide training and an enhanced learning process for all of you. So we've made a couple of slight changes. I'm not going to go into that right now, but please review that. I would also ask, just a reminder, if you can't make it, I realize life happens. If you cannot make it to a training, please cancel. It really helps us with planning. We had a record amount of people in the last quarter who just didn't show up for trainings. And so then we have developed all this training material that then just sits. It's not a good use of resource. So on your confirmation email, when you register, there's a whole section on how to cancel if you are not able to attend training. And so we would ask you to please do that. Okay, Jody, you can start. Technical assistance. I want to just speak really briefly about this. You've got the definition of technical assistance up here. A couple things I want to mention about that. It's a service that we provide. It's a one-on-one service where we provide some subject matter expertise on perhaps an issue, a challenge, a development need that you might have around a strategy, around the work maybe you're doing, recruiting for IYS, or recruiting for your youth advisory committee. Maybe it's your environmental scan when we get to that place, or communication campaigns, or YPE. A couple things I want to say, because we had some interesting questions last year about that, is that it's not a punitive process. Sometimes we get referrals from Kim, sometimes we get referrals from CPRD for providers who are struggling with a strategy. But it's not a punitive process. It's an actual process that allows you to build your capacity around an issue or a challenge, or perhaps you're just new to that strategy. And so we provide that, it's usually over the phone service, and you can elect that through me. So, but it's really about building your capacity as a system. So it's a complement sometimes after training, sometimes, someone's just struggling with something, they can contact me. And I'll make sure that I refer you to our appropriate staff person, and you can get, whatever type of assistance for however long we deem it's necessary with TA. Okay. That's good. So again, it's offered to all staff providers. So feel free to contact me if you feel like you have any questions or a need for TA services. And then we also have a variety of professional development resources. Again, there's our website. That's where you'll find all of that information. One important thing I want to note is we have a section for DHS. That's where you're going to find important SAP information. That's where you'll find the recording from today, as well as information that might come out from DHS leadership. So, you can visit that. The contact information sheet, once that's updated, will be put up there. So if you have a change in staff, you can download it from there and send it on to DHS leadership. Our resource guides, which are meant to complement a lot of the strategies, are currently under revision. So we'll have those up as quickly as we can. We're still in the process of revising some of those. We also have a variety of tip sheets, fact sheets, the virtual clearinghouse, as well as general substance abuse prevention news that you can find on our website. Okay. Finally, I want to talk really briefly about group site for substance abuse prevention programs. Kim talked about this just a little bit earlier. This is really an online platform that we have for substance abuse prevention providers only. So it's just for the SAPS system in Illinois. It's used for communicating, for sharing and networking. There's a variety of things that are on there that are features. You've got the shared calendar, discussion forums where, if you're implementing a YPE program and having trouble with classroom management, you might want to reach out and see if someone else has had that issue and how they might have addressed it. So, some peer-to-peer sharing and networking goes on group site, file storage and photo gallery. But also, one of the most important things is it's a communication tool for DHS. So we use GroupSite to send out the communications that Kim referred to earlier. Maybe it's an opportunity for a grant, a resource. It might be an upcoming meeting. So with that said, on to the next slide, Jody. If you were a current member of that, if you were in the old SAPS system and were a member, you should have received an email from Kim Zamboli and from GroupSite outlining how to become members of the new grant subgroup. Okay? This gives you the instructions. I'm not going to read it to you. If you're not a member and you're a new provider, this also gives you the instructions on how you can set up on GroupSite. So we just want to make sure that everybody gets into the correct subgrant for the new system and/or gets on GroupSite so that you don't miss out on training announcements will be made through there. DHS leadership will communicate through there. So we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and on GroupSite. Usually get a response within a couple of business days from us, so several of us manage that. So just again, for those of you who may not know, obviously this is our Chicago office. We also have another office in Springfield where we do trainings. That's our headquarters actually. And then we also do some off-site trainings at Chestnut Health Systems in Bloomington. So as the training calendar gets put up, you might notice that there are trainings on both those off-site locations. Questions for me right now? Everybody's like, it's lunch, it's lunch.
Yeah.
Do you have a handout too with that information
I
on it?
can go have Heather make them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We can send them out too afterwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you have questions about trainings afterwards, and you can pick up a handout, Jody will have those at the door for you. Just feel free to call me or email me, and I'll get back to you, and don't hesitate to ask questions. We'll do the best that we can to get those answered.
Great.
So Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you to close.
So I'm gonna actually, unless there's some really big burning question, I will stay for a few more minutes to answer them. So I apologize you hanging with me. I think I just ramble on, and I'm sorry about that. But I do have one more announcement. Actually, this is probably one of my last official things in this capacity. I've actually accepted a new position outside of state government. Yeah. So my last day is actually a week from today.
No.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and so I wanted to just say, this is the substance abuse prevention work or the system has been my baby. I started where you were. Probably started when November started. I started in 1987. I was a prevention specialist. I've worked at Youth Outreach. I worked at an agency that's on the south side that's no longer around. But I've been doing at this for about 30 years, and just moving on to a different type of positions, almost like Prevention First, only at the national level. They provide technical assistance to states in the area of substance abuse prevention for the block grant funded portion of SAMHSA's work. So I am a big champion, of our system. You guys really need to carry the torch. This work is so important to the health of communities, and they really need, people giving a prevention message. It's not something that we can expect someone else to do. So you have a great charge, and so for those of you who are new, is to really take it seriously, and that's why it's so important that we have data, we're using evidence-based. And also just to say that it's been a great honor really to serve at the state level. I never envisioned when I started as a prevention specialist that I was gonna someday be in this type of position. And so I have great respect for all of you and the work that you do. It's not easy, and I know that oftentimes. The good thing I hope too in our system is that by creating this new funding model is that you're working in a team. Not all of the agencies funded, they'll only have one worker, but there's so few that really understand the day-to-day work, right? It's very different. You have your treatment, they come to your agency. You're not out in the community going to this school and going to that church or going to this police department. It's really very different animal in terms of the work that we do. People don't come to you, you're out in the field. Sometimes you wear jeans, sometimes you wear a suit. You know, you got to be able to talk with very different partners. And so I just have, you know, it's a very challenging job and challenging work. And so I just really appreciate all of your efforts and just think that you do amazing things. And I just want to see you continue to do amazing things. And I know you're in good hands, you know, with the department staff and with the, you know, resources made available. And like I said, it's been an honor and a really humbling experience to work in this role. Yes?
Kim, I just want to say, you're just a champion of the field.
Yeah, it's tough, but time for some new challenges, so. All right.
Okay, I know I've been talking, but I was just gonna say how this particular meeting was so, it was flowing. It was like you were gonna help us. We weren't gonna be,
Well,
you know,
that's
with all
what
this stuff.
that's always my intent is to help. I know that it
So
doesn't always
what's
feel like it.
now?
Yeah.
You know, because I just felt like we were gonna be okay with the, you know, with all these new deliverables, the way you know, it was given to us. It's like, okay, I don't have to stress. So now, do I have to stress?
No, you don't have to stress.
Do we have a person? I'm nosy.
I can't give you the exact contact yet.
Wow.
I don't know.
But they understand.
But right, I mean, Chantel is the program administrator, and so, you know, until someone, you know, when I moved to DASA, I was promoted to a deputy director. I'm going to have other program services. I have other program services under me. But that position, I can't say yet who's going to fill that position. So really, I guess until you hear otherwise, Chantel should be your point of contact. Questions, budget, contract, etc. And then she'll just work with others to resolve issues and, you know, just stay on her because I can't say, again, when there'll be someone else. And then, of course, you know, reach out to Prevention First and CPRD where needed. Nothing like that is going to change. So I think we're on a good course. I hope that, you know, set the sail, push it off. And I know you guys will make it work. I know it, because you always do. And, you know, I know it's been a challenge. You guys are like probably the only grant program that every few years are like, used to be this? No. There's some threads that have been in place, but you kind of, you know, and I really respect that because I know it's very challenging. But I also think it's needed because ultimately we're trying to make things better at the community level. So we can't stay constant and think that the same strategies we're using when I started are going to be the same things that work today. So my applause to all of you. And it's been, like I said, I just have the utmost respect for all of the work that you do. And I hope maybe, you know, we'll work in a different capacity. So thanks, everybody. All right.
All right.
Oh, yeah.